Oh, yeah. This is just what I needed.
Nancy, we're live!
Oh, hello there. Are you the very small percentage of America that's still Republican? Well, there's still time to come over to the fun side, the Democratic Party. Da-da-da-da. We're just a bunch of hip and happy, smiling hard workers over here, waiting for all of you with arms wide open.
When the other guy was president, I was so angry all the time. He literally forced me to pay $2 a gallon for gasoline. But now that Joe Biden's president, I can finally pay what gas is worth. $5 a gallon.
Back in 2020, the other guy made me spend $3 for a 2x4. But now that Joe Biden's president, I'm happily paying $7 for a 2x4. Oh, me and Monica are gonna build the most expensive house in the world.
Last year, the other guy forced me to work 40 hours a week. I was miserable. But now that Joe Biden's president, I get free money every month so I can watch TV and sleep on the couch all day. I'm never going back to work.
You know, finally, we have a president. We have a president who's courageous enough to expose the rich, old, powerful white people who were born into privilege. And that same amazing president is allowing all of those rich, old, powerful white people to keep their jobs.
When the other guy was president, I thought for sure I'd be going to jail. But now that Joe Biden is president, I've been staying at the Standard Hotel every weekend. More pasta and hot dogs, please.
We were terrified about losing our business when the other guy was president. But now that Joe Biden is president, we're not afraid anymore. It's business as usual.
When the other guy was president, I would have to, smoke Parmesan cheese to get high. But now that my dad is president, I'm smoking the real stuff.
Now that Joe Biden is president, I don't have to delete my emails anymore. And the other guy can't put me in jail. Victory is mine!
I was so nervous when the other guy was president. I was convinced I was going to go to prison for my spy girlfriend. I got so nervous I would even fart on live TV. But now that Joe Biden is president, me and my spy girlfriend are finally getting married.
Ever since that racist madman, tick, sexist pig, corrupt motherfucker left the White House, I haven't heard our new president, Joe Biden, say Obamagate one time. Yeah, Joe is doing a great job.
You see, America is turning out to be a pretty cool place. And it's all because of Democrats. Join us today.
Yeah, all under the Gestapo run, jab crazy idiots want to poison us all. All right, the first one I'm going to bring up is a video from Stu Peters. Hey, brought on Dr. Carrie. I'm not sure how you say your name. Madej, I guess. Madej. I'm not sure if it's a J silent or not. Anyways, a lot of good info here. Now they're talking. Yeah, he already took a booster. They're going to jab us like they are in Israel, where they're all dying from the goddamn jabs. So, but they keep pushing them. They know it doesn't work, but they keep pushing them. It's part of the deal, the great new reset where they got to kill most of us. So, some parts of the world are pushing back and starting to end this stuff. We've got to force it to happen here. We've got to force it. Part of that is educating others, networking, get the protest ramped up, call the offices, really go to these school boards. You really have to go after them. You can't let them keep masking. The CRT you can't let happen. And you know if they get away with the masking, they're going to go for the jabbing our kids. So here we go. Oh, smaller instead of played. There we go. Play. There we go.
Shining a big bright light into the crevices of darkness, exposing the cockroaches, watching them scatter every day, including this 29th day of September 2021. Welcome to the Stu Peters Show. My name is Stu Peters. Well, to prove that there is nothing to fear from vaccine boosters, resident White House dementia patient Administrator Joe Biden publicly received a Pfizer booster shot on Monday. At least that's what we are told to believe, because that's what the media showed us on TV. Has to be legit. One day later, the White House announced that the president's trip to Chicago is postponed, supposedly so he can negotiate with lawmakers about the Democrats' big spending bill. But no, you won't see him in public in that span. Why, do you ask? The Biden administration is still pursuing its plan to force a vaccine into the arms of every living and breathing organism that scours, crawls on, or occupies America, regardless of age, health status, or religious conviction. But that dictatorial push just isn't enough. So they're also expanding their push to booster shots. Of course, those will be mandatory soon as well. Soon, everybody will be paying their mandatory tribute to Pfizer, to Moderna, to Johnson & Johnson every 6 months for the right to travel, go outside, hold a job, have a life. And they're racing forward aggressively. Even the CDC's own advisory committee on immunization practices voted against endorsing booster shots for healthcare workers and teachers. But last Friday, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky just overruled them. The Biden administration's political priorities come first, and that means more vaccines being forced into more arms. Dr. Carrie Madej says that she's personally examined multiple vials of the vaccines that are being forced into people's arms, and she says that she was horrified by what she saw. She says she cried harder than she ever has before. She says other American labs have looked at the contents of the vaccine vials only to shut down shortly after. And Dr. Carrie Madej joins us now. Doctor, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Stu. It's my pleasure to be here.
So you sent these images to the show. I've looked at them. I have to say that I was creeped out, but then again, I realized I don't know what I'm looking at here, so help me out.
Okay, so first of all, it was in July that a local lab in Georgia said they wanted me to examine contents of a vial that they had just received. This vial was fresh. It had already been used to be injected into at least one patient. Because it was the end of the day, they were going to discard it. So they were able to get the vial. And this particular vial was Moderna. And so I was there to witness them getting that and putting some of the contents on a glass slide with a compound microscope to look at it. And it was nothing was added to this solution. Nothing was diluted. No human tissue was added. Only the white light for the microscope. And of course, over time, it was becoming more room temperature from the refrigeration. That was it. And so at first it looked just translucent. And then as time went on, over 2 hours, colors appeared, which I've never seen anything like this. There wasn't a chemical reaction happening. It was a brilliant like blue and royal purple and a yellow and sometimes green. And so these colors appearing, I did not know what that was. After investigating a superconducting material can do that with white light being emitted to it. Okay, a superconducting material would be something like an injectable computing system. Anyhow, these fibers were appearing more and more. Some of the fibers had a little cube structure on that. I'm not sure what that was. And also metallic fragments were in there. They were not metallic fragments I'm used to seeing, more exotic. They're very opaque, as well as, as the edge of the cover slide goes, so the cover slip, when you put a glass partition on that or a piece on top of the glass slide, there are edges. And so all the particulates, all these colors started to move to the edge, and there was self-assembling going on. Things were growing. They looked synthetic. And then there was one particular, I'd say, object or organism, I'm not sure what to call it, that had tentacles coming from it. And it was able to lift itself up off of the glass slide.
It was alive? Like the thing was alive?
It appeared to be self-aware or be able to grow or move in space. I mean, all I can tell you is this is not something they taught us in medical school, nothing in my laboratories, nothing that I've seen before. And I've showed this to other people in the field and they don't know what it is either. And I thought, when I first saw this and I kept looking at it over and over again, I had a colleague with me, and we both thought, wow, this almost appears like it's self-aware, like it knows we're watching it. It's just an intuition, a feeling of mine, but it was very upsetting. And so after 2.5 hours, everything was destroyed, of course. And then I thought, well, maybe that was a fluke in a way. Maybe that was just that one vial. And so, just recently, the lab was able to get more vials, and same manufacturer, but different batch, of course, looking at it the same way under the compound microscope, and another one of those tentacle-like structures appeared. This was now completely under the cover slip, so there was no movement because it wasn't on the edge. But I just couldn't believe I saw another one. And it's same thing, same colors appeared over time, these fibers. There, in this time, I need to get, if they do it again, I have to get a video from them. There was actually motion that you could see in the video. So, this is very concerning. And also was able to look at the contents of a Johnson & Johnson vial. And there's definitely a substance that looked like graphene. They all had graphene-like structures in there. Whether or not they were, I don't have the capability of testing them, nor did this lab, but that's what they appeared to be. They had fatty substances, like a sticky glue-like substance that would be considered a hydrogel in those, both of them, right? So that means they're lying. They're lying to us about the Johnson & Johnson, about not having nanolipid particles or anything of that substance, and it does. And in the Johnson & Johnson, they also had colors appeared. Their colors were different. They were like a fluorescent pastel kind of color. Again, a lot of synthetic structures in there as well. In the Johnson & Johnson, more like the spherical ring structures were there, a lot of sphere structures. These, I'm describing what I'm seeing, but I've never seen anything like this before. They're not supposed to be in these injections they're falsely calling vaccines. What are they going to do to somebody? What are they going to do to a child?
It's horrific.
I started crying when I saw these, second time under the microscope, because it was confirmation of everything I saw the first time.
If I were
What will
looking into a
happen?
microscope at something that I was told was a vaccine to promote health and safety, and some self-aware tentacle-equipped creature started moving, I would probably run out of the laboratory. I mean, that's just me. I'm not scared of a lot, but that is scary that is going into the blood of global citizens. And you're right, they want to push this into our children.
Oh, yes. This was about 400 times magnification. So we don't have, more information than that, but, people need to really, really, really stop and think about what is happening right now. And it doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't go and rush to a decision that you could regret. Something's not right in the world. I think we all know that right now. And to me, it's definitely on the level of a spiritual warfare. Looking at it under the microscope, absolutely. And, this pushes me, this inspires me to make more of these, maybe videos, if we can get the lab to get more of these samples, to do them in real time, so you can actually see what we're doing, to have proof of, yes, this is what is happening. This is what we are seeing. So you yourself can see what is happening under the microscope, because I don't think you need to have any science background. When you look at it, you'll see that something isn't right. This isn't supposed to be injected into human beings.
So when you first,
especially children,
before you started talking about this self-aware, whatever it is that lifted itself up off of the glass, you mentioned something about an injectable computing system. What do you make of that?
Yeah. So when colors just appeared in the solution, I mean, I'm talking about there's no color or very little. All of a sudden, the most brilliant blue, the most brilliant yellow, the most brilliant purple appeared in more and more and more and more over time. I've never seen anything be able to do that besides something, unless you added another substrate for a chemical reaction. It has to react with something. I didn't know what could do that. And so I started to talk to some nanotech engineers and genetic engineers, and they told me the only thing they knew of that could do that was a white light, which a white light did hit it. The microscope has a white light. a white light over time will make the reaction on a superconducting material. Superconducting is like an injectable computing system. So this is where the electronic components can now become visible under white light, so you know where they are. So this is proof that they are putting an operating system inside people. This happened in both the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson samples that we observed. So, these are all, we're getting little pieces of evidence put together one by one, but everything is pointing to the very ominous, endpoint of this is the beginning or the advent of transhumanism, or this is the beginning or advent of being able to have surveillance and spying done on people, just like Bill Gates said he's doing right now in West Africa. People need to remember that the Gates Foundation, or at least Bill Gates and Gavi, his companies working with MasterCard and Trust Stamp, an artificial intelligence program, testing it on the people of West Africa with their COVID vaccines, injections, I should say, giving them a digital ID. They can only get their monetary funds through the digital ID and MasterCard, no other way, no cash, nothing. And this, and all their medical records and information downloaded into this digital format in their body. And they said in this program, this research experiment they're doing on the people, they said, well, if this substance is inside of them, this hydrogel substance, of course, why don't we use it for surveillance and predictive policing? We're going to start using it for surveillance and predictive policing on the people of West Africa right now. They've been doing this since July of 2020. And they said once they have it perfected, they would like to unveil it to all the developed nations. And what are they calling it? The wellness pass, which is also known as a vaccine passport. So how are they doing that, right, Stu? They have to put something inside your body to be able to monitor you and know everything that you're doing. So people need to wake up. What could they put inside your body for that to happen? How would they do it? I think Gates is already admitting to us how he's doing it or how he wants to do it. How much does it take? I don't know. I just know that I'm seeing these things with my own eyes, things that don't make sense, things that look like they could be used for, so they look like they are the advent of starting something of artificial intelligence inside the human body. And we know that the people in charge aren't to be very trustworthy at all. They've lied many times to us. The manufacturers have lied many times to us. So this is the time that we do not, we don't take this anymore. We don't take this kind of oppression and suppression. We're better than that. We are children of God. We choose to be, right? And
Absolutely.
I for one will not stand for it.
So just to wrap up here, and I know that you got to go, but I just, for responsibility purposes, you've examined things under microscopes before. You know what you're doing with a microscope. These vials multiple vials that you examined, you have kept track of the chain of custody. Nothing was inserted into these things before you were able to look at them. I mean, this is all on the up and up. And this is the genuinely the contents of what is found in multiple lots now, you have said, of the Moderna and the J&J vials.
Yeah, at least three batches. At least 3 batches, yes, that is correct.
It's awful. It's horrific. I can understand why you cried. Dr. Carrie Madej, thank you so much. And when you do have those videos, we trust that you'll come back here to share those with the audience. I mean, people need to know what it is that's being pushed on them. People need to know that this isn't just your everyday run-of-the-mill health and wellness prevention. There's none of that going on here. So we appreciate it.
Thanks. Yes, thanks, Stuart. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm happy to come on in the future and share more as I get more information.
Great. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thanks.
Those images that we just looked at together, and then hearing the way that Dr. Carrie Madej describes the way that she felt viewing those images through a microscope, horrific, alarming, very concerning. And we have to be worried about being around people when we talk about things like transmission and shedding, the people who have already gotten this thing. You got to stay healthy. Dr. Vladimir Zev Zelenko saved thousands of lives in upstate New York. He's a genius, which is why he's a Nobel Prize nominee, a Presidential Medal of Freedom nominee, boasts a 99.9% survival recovery rate of all of the patients, the high-risk COVID patients that he treated. He has put together his Z-Stack. The Z-Stack protocol can be found at zstackprotocol.com. All of the things that you can go to the pharmacy and put together yourself if you want to. If you don't want to worry about dosing, figuring it all out on your own, he's got it all in one pill. You can find it at zstackprotocol.com when we're talking about these chimerically engineered viruses. Who knows what it is that's floating around out here. Got to stay healthy. Early treatment protocol is the key. Find it at zstackprotocol.com. Again, zstackprotocol.com. The Stu Peters Show continues right now.
Yeah. If the government's going to lie to you about one thing, they're definitely going to lie to you about everything, especially when it's a power grab, socialism grab, you know. Anyways, well, and they're not telling us what's in it, not allowing us to find out. Heck, once they fully get power, they'll just lie to us, but they'll probably do that anyways to some degree. Of what's in it to a degree. That's why there's good Samaritans out there telling us what's going on, you know. So here's another doctor speaking in a board of county commissioners meeting, and this doctor is speaking out against what's in it, wearing masks and all that kind of stuff. It could put people into Facebook jail, I suppose. That's what he says, and it's very likely. Let me start this right at the beginning. I was listening to it earlier. Here we go. There's a lot of info here.
My name is Dr. Kevin Stillwagon. I am a property owner and a taxpayer in Orange County. You are making some really bad decisions based on fear of a virus that has about a 99% survival rate for most of us. That is unsubstantiated fear. So let me give you a couple of things to truly be fearful about. That mask that you keep insisting that people wear decreases the amount of oxygen in your lung tissue. We now know that this virus uses something called a furin cleavage site to merge with your lung tissue to infect you. And it works better with decreased oxygen. And peer-reviewed research clearly shows that wearing a mask increases your chances of developing an upper respiratory infection 13 times more than a person not wearing a mask. So I would stop wearing a mask immediately if I were you. Secondly, this shot that you insist on people getting gives you absolutely no protection against infection. It is the innate immune system that protects you from infection by using dendritic cells, T cells, and natural killer cells without antibodies ever becoming involved. This shot has one goal, and that goal is to make antibodies. These antibodies circulate inside of you and cannot prevent an infection. They can only react to something that has already gotten inside of you. They cannot keep something out. The shot decreases the ability of your innate immune system to keep viruses out by 60%, and a booster shot will reduce it even more. Even worse, the antibodies that are created by this shot can no longer neutralize variants and actually enhance the virus ability to infect you. It should be painfully obvious to you by now that fully vaccinated people are getting sick. And this will continue to get worse if you keep trying to jab people while a virus is trying to spread. The variants are emerging from the vaccinated population. This so-called vaccine is still being administered on what's called an emergency use authorization. It is not FDA approved. The FDA approved a biological licensing application for a product called Comirnaty. The application was approved, not the product. Comirnaty is not available in the United States. Therefore, by law, you cannot force people to take this drug without informed consent and without animal trials to prove that it is safe. Mayor Demings, please look at me. You, sir, are in violation of the United States Constitution and the Nuremberg Code. You will be held accountable. Good day.
Yep. I wish there was more like that. No one coming up that I already did there. Hold on. Let me move that. Yeah. I wish there was more parents getting up there and going to these meetings and backing these people up. The next one's about the deadly truth about these vaccines and the history and all that. All right, and this is about jabbing the kids and stuff like that. This is a newer one. So here we go.
There is no study to prove that unvaccinated children have ever been proven to start an epidemic. I have been seeing families in my practice for over 20 years that have opted out of vaccination. They are the healthiest children I have ever seen. And more parents are understanding the dangers of vaccines, and that's why we're seeing such pressure to mandate vaccines, because more of the science is coming out. We assume that if we vaccinate, we're getting protection. We assume that if we vaccinate, we're stopping spread of disease. Those are assumptions that have never been solidified in science.
Doctor, I would want you to get sick.
Yeah.
Because the more times you get sick, the more money I'll make.
That's right.
I don't get sick. I'm just being honest. I don't get sick.
Okay.
My children have never been sick.
Okay. They've never been vaccinated.
They've never been vaccinated, none of that, and they don't get sick.
Okay.
Because the mother's milk in the breast is all the vaccination that they need. That's it. That's it.
Do any vaccines contain egg protein?
Yes, influenza.
Do any vaccines contain gelatin from pigs?
Yes.
Do any vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule contain human albumin?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
What is human albumin?
Human albumin is part of human serum. It's part of the blood that is liquid.
That could be problematic, right?
Well, it could be. I mean, if the individual is not healthy,
or if maybe some of the human blood components bind to some of the aluminum and develop antibodies, self-antibodies, correct?
If they develop antibodies against a serum component, that would not be good.
Do any vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule contain MRC5 human diploid cells?
Yes. Rubella, varicella, hepatitis A.
What are MRC5 cells?
They are human fibroblast cell strain. They were created by taking fetal tissue and from a particular fetus that was aborted by maternal choice, and the cells, the so-called fibroblast cells, were cultivated.
Do any vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule contain WI38 human diploid lung fibroblasts?
Well, they used to, but I don't think anything is made in those cells anymore.
If you could turn to page 3 for MMR and MMRV. Do you see that within the ingredient list that lists WI38 human diploid lung fibroblasts?
Yes, I do see that.
Isn't it true that human DNA in vaccines is typically purposely fragmented?
Yes, I would say mostly for theoretical reasons, doesn't want to put DNA into intact DNA into vaccines.
These fetuses were all 3 months or older when aborted, correct?
Yes.
What organs did you harvest from these fetuses?
Well, I didn't personally harvest any, but a whole range of tissues were harvested by coworkers.
Okay. And these pieces were then cut up into little pieces, right?
Yes.
And they were cultured?
Yes.
Okay. Some of the pieces of the fetuses were pituitary gland that were chopped up into pieces. Okay, included the lung of the fetuses.
Yes.
Okay, included the skin.
Yes.
Kidney.
Yes.
Spleen.
Yes.
Heart.
Yes.
And tongue.
I don't recall, but yeah, probably yes.
Are you aware that one of the objections to vaccination by the plaintiff in this case is the inclusion of aborted fetal tissue in the development of vaccines and the fact that it's actually part of the ingredients of vaccines?
Yeah, I'm aware of those objections.
Okay. Are you an atheist?
Yes.
When you were a child, what vaccines did you receive?
Diphtheria. In childhood, I think it was probably only diphtheria.
You're going to let the government run healthcare? They screw everything up. So why would you let them be the ones to stick a disease into your arm? I would never get a swine flu vaccine or any. I don't trust the government, especially with my health.
This is thimerosal, which is labeled very toxic, has cumulative effects, can cause damage to the kidneys, to the respiratory system, skin, to the nervous system. Specifically warns on here that it can cause reproductive and developmental toxicity, meaning that it can cause things like autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. This is immensely toxic stuff. And this is what's in the vaccine. It's important to realize we're talking about a whole range of products. Vaccines are a big one because, of course, you're directly injecting it. For example, this is tetanus vaccine. This one expires. It's a little outdated now. In 2007, here's the thimerosal. 1 to 10,000 is a preservative. Perhaps the biggest one in the U.S., at least, that's for exposure to mercury is the influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine is now recommended for all pregnant women, all infants, all children on a yearly basis.
It needs to be stopped.
This is the influenza vaccine from Adventist Pasteur, their flu zone. Thimerosal, 25 micrograms of mercury per dose.
But I'd like to point out that a lot of people didn't know, and I'm one of them. I've given 2,000 RhoGAM shots. I've been in vaccines for 35 years. I didn't know that RhoGAM had thimerosal in it. So I think a lot of the doctors were unaware. They were unaware that even the word thimerosal meant mercury.
The science is settled. Vaccinations work. They save lives. Here's how vaccines work. We study a germ, that is, a bacteria or a virus. We call this particular one Carrie. So to make a vaccine, scientists take the bug and modify it so that it can't hurt you. Then by placing it in your bloodstream, like this, your white blood cells learn to recognize that germ, and when they do, they attack it. So should we have laws that require vaccinations? I'm not kidding about this, people. It's serious.
First of all, aluminum. What happens if you inject it when you're a baby? Has there ever been a safety test on it? Never. Not in the history of man have we ever said, what does it happens when we inject aluminum? We don't care, Bill. Gary gets a little shot of aluminum in there. So we're going to take mercury. We're putting it inside of Gary here. Most toxic substance, by the way, that's not radioactive. Check out your flu shot. You pregnant women are going into your doctors. They've decided it's a great idea to have mercury being injected into Gary, which is going into your fetus. How about formaldehyde? Have you seen any of the articles on formaldehyde? The science is settled. It's perfectly decided. There we go. Formaldehyde for everybody. Wonderful. What's next? That's right. Antifreeze, propylene glycol in your vaccine. But don't worry, because We know that Bill told us it's safe. So here we go into Carrie. Now we have what is really a vaccine. See this oozing, disgusting mess? There we go. Here we go. Stuff that. Look, you can eat it. There we go. Oh, he's got it. Oh, yeah. Bill Nye and no scientist in America wants to talk about. Where does that mercury go? Where does that aluminum go? They're not finding it in your urine. It's not disappearing when you take a crap. What it's doing is it's being found where? It's going into the brain. And when it hits the brain, that's right, encephalopathy, brain swelling. It's written inside the labels. That's a known side effect of every vaccine we get. And yet Bill Nye wants to leave that part of this story out. Deadly, poisonous, toxic chemicals and metals. So when they try to tell you the science is settled, that vaccines are safe and effective, you have to know that we've paid out over $3.5 billion with a B in damages to children who have been killed and injured by vaccines.
We're going to go take a look at a rash after a shot that was given a couple days ago. Let's go take a look. We had the Tdap, which is tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. We use an acellular pertussis vaccine here that does have aluminum. It's impossible to get one that doesn't have aluminum in them. I drew lines around this. You know, parents, when you see a large reaction like this after a vaccine, it looks like an infection, but it isn't. It's that aluminum, probably the aluminum. There are other ingredients that might be irritating. Overnight, in a 2 days after the vaccine, and I would not do this same vaccine again, because once you've had a large local reaction like this, you would be at greater risk for a really bad reaction.
Leo Smith was a year and a half old when he had a bad reaction to a vaccine, and tonight his mother is sharing his story for the first time.
This video of Leo Smith was shot about 8 months after he received 2 vaccine injections, including one for diphtheria and whooping cough, hours after getting the vaccine.
Within about 3 days after that he started to have hives and welts and joint swelling.
Amy Mitten-Smith says within days he had hives, joint swelling, and a fever, and within weeks, seizures. 2 months after the injections, the symptoms subsided, but Leo stopped talking. 8 months later, the original symptoms returned after Leo caught a cold. This time, Leo developed an eye tic. Soon after, he was diagnosed with autism and later other neurological disorders.
I thought I was protecting him by taking him in to get his vaccines, and I ended up injuring him for the rest of his life.
The vaccine court ruled that the vaccine did, in fact, injure Leo and awarded him $55,000.
I regret not looking into it, and now it's too late.
I'm glad I'm retired now, because now I can talk to you. Because you know what? While I worked, I couldn't. Because if I did, conflict of interest, I would have lost my job. That's truth. A lot of my colleagues did lose their jobs. How did I survive 20 years and never get the flu in that environment? ER, high volume. Was I not on the front lines? Every flu case, 300 people a day. Every flu case, it was me. I never had the flu. You know why? I knew how to wash my hands. I knew how to take vitamin D. I knew how to take elderberry syrup. I don't approve of your flu shot. Now you have pharmacists giving it. You bribe us with cards at Target, and you tell us this is free and it's everywhere, and get it. They're scare tactics, so you should be ashamed. And then I will end, because I do want my colleagues, the other moms that know what the CDC doesn't do for us. I'm looking around. Some of you are my age. And if I'm mistaken, I apologize. But I'm in a generation where I got 7 shots. 26 years later, my daughter got 10. Her son got probably 60. My new grandson's expected to get 72, and I just watched you add more. I'm appalled. Robert Kennedy Jr., you know what he says? His family started Special Olympics. There were no autistic kids. He says that where the 40-year-olds wearing diapers with helmets on at the mall, if you misdiagnose them, if you miss them, because you say they're not vaccines, that they missed them. Where were the special ed classes when people with my generation, there weren't any, because they didn't exist? I have a 10-year-old grandson, and I don't care what you say, that the autism and vaccines don't exist. It does. because I watched a perfectly healthy, beautiful 2-year-old get those shots and become a severe autistic child. And guess what? He will be 40, walking in the mall with a diaper on and a helmet. Thank you for the studies that you don't do.
We'll slow up the switch. I'm going to end it here. I got Ellen Lee Zhao coming on. This is playing on. Yeah, she's coming on a little bit later to talk about her foundation. I guess she's going to do it in Chinese because I had a lot of people in FC2, which is a Chinese American group, wanting to know some information about this and that. Not all their English is perfect, so she's going to do some of it in Chinese tonight. So bear with it. Okay. So around 8 o'clock, she's supposed to come on. Hopefully she remembers. All right. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.